Welcome back to our podcast, Behind the Sold Sign, with your hosts, Sheila Kirkpatrick and
Justin Saunier.
We're here to discuss all things real estate and really take a complex topic and simplify things. We have been, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about preparing people for their offers in negotiation. We've been discussing the contingencies of the contract. So now we're at a point where we've have an accepted offer. We're now firm on the sale, and we're going to take you through that last mile of the marathon to bring home a successful closing.
Yep.
And first, we're going to talk about legal.
Yes. So if you don't already have a lawyer, that's okay. We're here to help you with that. We have a list of recommended professionals that we can provide you. And from there, you just want to book a consultation with one or a few, get some estimates in place, and just make sure that they can accommodate the closing of this transaction. Some of them are very busy. Some of them have some availability. So that's the first thing you kind of want to do once you have that firm accepted offer.
Yeah. And from there, once we know who your legal team is, we're going to send those documents off. Then it's a little bit of a waiting game. And what we always recommend is for our folks or our clients to reach out to their legal team a week or two prior to closing. And what that's going to be able to do for you is ask those necessary extra questions that may have come up between having a firm sale and that closing date to get anything answered. You're going to find out what your legal team needs from you to close the transaction, which is going to be obviously an ID. And then it's going to be what's involved with those closing costs. So you can always ask some of those questions in advance, but you'll need those funds when we're closing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then next, it's moving time.
Yes. So kind of discussing, are you going to hire a professional moving company to help you move through this transition? Or is this something you and your family are going to kind of take on yourself? And if so, that's fine, but also setting up that timeline.
Yeah. And I know for me, I think every time I've moved, I've said, I am never moving again. It's wonderful when you do have movers that can come in, but we all know that that's not affordable. And when it's not affordable, what are some of your other options? So obviously you can move on your own, but we also have a very unique thing here at Exit Realty Specialists, where we have access to a moving truck. So we supply moving truck, driver, gas, insurance, and really the only thing you need is
the manpower.
That's right.
Yep.
So it is a move from point A to point B. And with that move, it's just based upon availability. So if you are able to book that, then it's a great resource that we have.
Absolutely. And just kind of correlating back to a previous episode that we discussed about the closing date, just making sure that you're setting up the timing to not move on your closing date.
So important, Justin. So important.
We don't want any more hiccups or delays. So planning in advance.
And next up is utilities and services transfers.
Yes. So the essential setup that you want to make sure is in place before you take possession of the home is your hydro and your insurance. Those are really the only two that we need to make sure are set up for the closing date, regardless of if you're moving in that date or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you're going to come into items that are maybe, I'm going to say, not necessity. They may feel like necessity. Like, for example, you look at your, let's say, internet services, internet, phone, TV. That may feel like a necessity item, but you can't schedule that until the house closes. So it's so important not to schedule at the day of close, because if the house closes and it's, let's just say 4:00 in the afternoon and you've scheduled it for 12 o'clock, you're going to have to cancel an appointment that you're not going to want to cancel because it might not get rescheduled for a couple weeks or even a month. So you want to make sure that you schedule that after the closing date.
Yeah, because you essentially do not have the right to that home until the property is transferred title. So until that moment, can't get in.
And then service cancellation for sellers is so important because you need to make sure that you don't cancel these too early. And canceling too early could cause closing day hiccups.
Yep.
So we just want to make sure that you don't cancel insurance early. You want to make sure that you have the power on to do the final walkthrough. And if there is anything outstanding that you're not sure about, reach out to your real estate professional because they will be able to give you that necessary advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And next is change of address.
Yes. Step number 1, quick and easy, letting Canada Post know that you need your mail forwarded to your new address. This is going to give you a little bit of leeway and some time to contact all of those services providers and let them know your new updated address.
Yeah, and what I find is when it comes to the mail forwarding, you have lots of different options that you can use with Canada Post, and you can have it out a year if you want it. You can extend it at any time, but there is so much going on between having a firm sale and closing date that the last thing you want to worry about is spending your time contacting every single person to change your address. You want to be able to tell friends and family and send out, maybe an email, text message, something like that. But this forwarding of Canada Post buys you so much time, and it's well worth the investment.
Absolutely.
And then, do you have a mailbox or a community box?
That's a good point.
Yeah, because if you have a mailbox, all the mail's going straight to your house. If you have a community box, things are just a little bit different, and there's a little bit more preparation involved. So this is when you would reach out to us, and we would find out where the community box is, if the seller's leaving the keys or not. And if you want to be very proactive, then you just reach out to Canada Post. You tell them that you have a change in address. You let them know when that date is. You may have to provide your purchase and sale agreement, but they will actually change all the locks out for you. So that's a nice little tip if you want to make sure there's no other outstanding keys.
Absolutely. Okay, next, let's discuss the seller's property preparation for closing.
Ooh, this one's a good one.
So first of all, we want to make sure that the home is getting cleaned prior to that closing date so that when the buyers are walking through for that pre-closing, the home is tidy, all of the belongings are removed, and nothing is damaged or left unkept.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's interesting about this is we take it back to our contract. And within our contract, we have things called chattels and fixtures. So chattels are items that can be picked up and moved. So if we took the house and flipped it upside down, would they move? That's a chattel. If that is not in the contract, it is not to remain in the house. And if it's fixed, then it does remain in the house. So with items that I find sellers can think it's great to leave something and that a buyer might want it.
It's not always the case.
No. Again, pre-closing nightmares.
Yep.
And with that, if you think that there is anything that a buyer may want that you have, the best thing you can do is take a picture of it, send it to your real estate agent, and have them ask the buyer if they want it to remain.
Absolutely. And it's so important during this point in the process as well. Any questions you have, if you're uncertain about anything, ask your real estate advisor so that way they can just give you the correct information and you don't have to kind of sit here and wonder, well, I would want this. So I think they will too. Well, no, it doesn't matter. Just ask us.
Yeah.
We'll get the information we need to provide you with, and then you can just know yes or no.
Yeah, we're always here to answer the questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting with items to be removed, it's not only inside the house, it's also outside the house. So if you have extra debris and things like that, that all needs to go as well. And it's not okay to leave all the garbage bags just sitting on the property. You need to get rid of those as well. And then when it comes to the cleaning of the property, the contract is broom swept condition, but I do think it works in good faith to have more than. Always doing more than is the difference between smooth transitions and not so smooth. So if I were selling my home, I would have a cleaner in, or I would be cleaning very, very well. Yeah,
leaving the property in the condition that you would want to receive it in, and that goes with the lawn as well.
Yeah. And then it's final walkthrough time, or pre-closing inspection, as we call it.
So taking this walkthrough to make sure that nothing drastic has changed with the home. There's nothing that's been damaged. Everything is as you initially saw it, minus the furniture.
Right. So with a pre-closing inspection, that is one of the clauses in the contract.
Yep.
And all it states in the contract is that it needs to take place by a certain time. So maybe, 5 p.m. the day before close or 9 a.m. the day of close. Personally, I like to schedule them the day before close. So my contracts will typically say 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. the day prior to close, so that if you do run into any challenges, you have an extra 12 hours to work on it
To rectify.
without
Yep.
stress.
Totally.
And when it comes to that pre-closing inspection, it's important, even though it's in the contract, to schedule it. Everyone has to agree to the times within there, and also having your agent reach out a few days prior to closing to find out when they are going to be moved out completely.
Yep.
And as a seller, which I don't think we talked about in the moving section, but if you're a seller, always prepare to move out the day before closing.
Yes.
I like
yes.
12 o'clock the day before closing. Find yourself an Airbnb, find yourself a hotel if you need to make arrangements for a night, but have yourself prepared. And I'm not sure if that's what you're sensing by our podcast, but this is all about preparing buyers and sellers for what's to come next so that we can make the transaction as easy for you as we possibly can.
Yep. As seamless as possible.
Yeah. That wraps up today's episode of that final mile in the journey of closing your property transaction. And we want to thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast again. And please feel free to like, share, subscribe. And until next time.
Thanks for joining.